Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Simple Electronics Podcast. I'm your host, Dan, from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel. This episode is brought to you by people like you supporting on sites like Patreon. So head over to patreon.com/simpleelectronics if you want to support the show. All right, let's get started. So another disclaimer, it's been over a month now, probably close to 2 months. You probably heard my voice crack right there. I still have this weird intermittent laryngitis thing, so you'll have to excuse the edits as you listen to this podcast. However, it's starting to get better. It got to a point where I couldn't say anything basically without my voice cracking, and now it seems to come and go again. So hopefully I'm almost out of the woods on that one. But yeah, I just can't wait to get back to live streaming again. I just can't talk for 5-6 hours without any breaks to do any live streaming. So I'm really looking forward to getting back into that. So what have I been up to? Well, the weather has changed. It was getting pretty hot up here in Canada, and the fishing seasons have opened. The main fishing season that kind of marks the start of fishing is pike and walleye. Those are freshwater fish. And so I've been gone fishing. This is kind of my passion, my wind down. My whole goal is to get out on the water. It is so beautiful, which is why I have a couple electronics projects to work on that are related to the water. But I caught 2 walleye on the opening day of walleye fishing here in Ontario. And I headed up to my parents' cottage afterwards for the opening of pike fishing over there and did not catch any pike. But, it's been nice. But that's what I've been spending my time on is getting to the water. And this brings me to a trip down to Kingston, Ontario. And so I found a used outboard motor. I'm going somewhere electronics-y with this. That was a really good price down in Kingston, Ontario, which is about 2.5 hours. It's about 200 kilometers from home. And so we went there a couple days ago and I picked up the motor, a little bit disappointed in the condition, but I got a really good price. So it is what it is. But while I was there, I took it as an opportunity to visit a local electronics shop. So some of you that have been following the channel for a little while, especially on the live streams and possibly also if you've listened to the podcast episode with Basement Electronics, you would know that there's a small electronics shop in Kingston called QKits. And I knew that if I go down to Kingston and pick up anything, I would have to stop at QKits, and QKits is where I went. So pretty excited to tell you about that. So first and foremost, QKits is like in an industrial area, like a commercial area. It's not really like on a main street or anything like that. So you pull up to this commercial multi-unit building and, you're just greeted with a traditional like fluorescent lighted behind sign that says QKits. There's a couple other things on there and they have sort of like a regular man door, and you walk in and immediately you are greeted with, I guess, the best way to explain it would be a combination of AliExpress and Amazon, but all in person. So when you first walk in, basically in front of you, there's like a display case, sort of like, the counter where the owner, James, would probably stand on a regular day. We were there kind of early. We got there, I say we, my wife and I, we got there when the place opened pretty much. So we actually got in and James didn't hear us come in. So we were a little sneaky. But yeah, directly in front, there's like a display case. And I'm doing all this by memory, by the way. So forgive me if I get some aspects wrong. In the display case, there's a couple of voltage displays that are on and churning out. In fact, a lot of things in the store seem to be, like the displays and stuff, seem to be made by James himself. So yeah, you got a clear display case and there's kind of like really cool things on display there. And then there's like sort of like Arduino-y type boards and stuff, like legit Arduino stuff. And boxes and all sorts of things like that. And there are 2 racks kind of like in the middle of the store, very small space, probably 10 feet deep. It's an L shape, let's say 10 feet by 10 feet in an L kind of thing. And there's 2 racks on wheels, and the racks are sort of like floor to ceiling 3D printer filament. So kilogram boxes of 3D printer filament. I even saw some much bigger rolls of filament, like maybe 3 or 5 kilograms. And this kind of runs the entire spectrum of colors, and materials was mostly PLA, ASA. There was some TPU. I actually asked if they had black TPU, but they didn't have any in stock. So I ended up picking up some PETG, very, very little PETG, but lots and lots of filament, which was really, really cool. And then on the wall, to the left of where you walk in, there were things like lengths of wire, assorted lengths of wire. There were like connectors, all sorts of like, basically like jacks, like audio jacks, pieces of cords, I think like USB connectors. It's hard to say. There was a lot of stuff to take in. And also between the door and that wall with the wire and stuff, there was like a rack of like resin filament. But to the right, when you get in, there's literally a rack there, which is taller than I am. So I'm like 5'9" or so. And the rack is taller. And all over that rack is all the little like Arduino type modules that you could ever expect to want. And also little Arduino boards too. I'm trying to think if the boards were there or if they were elsewhere. But you know, the RP2040 zeros that I like, the little ones. Yep, they had that in stock. You know, you have a whole bunch of shields. You have like sensors, all sorts of stuff. It's literally like an in-person AliExpress. Everything is there in stock. Like you can walk in, grab an SD card, you know, shield for an Arduino Uno and walk out. It is crazy the amount of stuff in this place. Then, you know, along the right-hand wall, there's all sorts of equipment like there's multimeters, there were soldering stations, there was actually a lot of chemicals too. Chemicals are really difficult to get your hands on. You can't just go on Amazon and order chemicals because it's very expensive to ship them. So if you need like a massive container of alcohol, you could get like 99% isopropyl alcohol, for example. Lots of MG Chemicals stuff. Really neat store. I really want to do a little bit of a video series in there, but that has to be... Apparently the shop needs to be organized a little bit better or changed or something. I'm not sure what James's reservations were, but it seems like we could make a video in there if you guys are interested. Anyways, continuing on along the left-hand wall, past the wires and stuff like that, you know, on the floor, there's some more filament boxes. Really cool. Then there's like a bunch of kits. And these kits are not kits that I've seen before. They are kits from a company called Velleman or Wellman. Not sure. Velleman. So a whole bunch of kits that are there. A couple of them caught my eye. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then, yeah, the shop sort of ends there. At least the retail space ends around there. However, behind the retail space looks like a tinkerer's paradise. Now, from what I gather, and I'd love to talk to James, the owner, about this more in depth, but behind the counter, there seems to be a spot where you can, you know, prototype PCBs or build PCBs. Like it's really like a workspace. There looks to be like an exhaust, like an exhaust vent for when you're soldering. And upon chatting with James a little bit, he was saying that he does, you know, prototyping and manufacture of, you know, custom PCBs and stuff like that for clients, which is really friggin' cool. So coming into the shop. Oh yeah, and behind the counter, I forgot, there's also a whole bunch of boxes of components. So if you need resistors, if you need capacitors, if you need connectors, if you need pins, all sorts of things, I mean, he's got them and he's got them in stock. Oh, and in the counter, the display counter, since the place is like an L, so not facing the door, the other part of the L of the counter, there was a whole bunch of RC stuff. So a whole bunch of like servos and receivers and FPV cameras, like drone type stuff. Really cool shop. So I was just telling my wife when we were browsing around that this is what we lost when Radio Shack shut down. Now, I was a bit young personally when Radio Shack was relevant, but I used to go in there and I thought it was really cool that you can get RC cars. Radio Shack had a whole bunch of RC stuff, but you can literally get components. And I remember my grandfather going into Radio Shack and picking up like these self-flashing LEDs to make a fake alarm system for his car. Like, pretty incredible that you can just walk in there and walk out with a bag of transistors. Well, I'm telling you, QKits is like that, except you don't have to just buy a blinking LED. You can buy like a 128 LED matrix if you want. And you know what? I bought a couple things, and we'll chat about what I bought in a moment, but the prices are very reasonable. I mean, yeah, so Amazon has better deals on some stuff for sure. I mean, you can't beat a titan like Amazon, but the benefit of this store is that A, it's in stock, and B, if you only need one board, if you only need like one RP2040, you're going to pay more on Amazon for 3 than you will for 1 at QKits. So if you just need to get the job done, you can pay. It's like roughly a third of buying 3, the cost, and you have it right there in your hands. It is crazy. I can picture so many times that I was working on a project, right? And let's say it's a sponsored PCBWay project, for example. I'm just missing, 2 resistors. Well, if I had a place like QKits nearby, I could go there and I can buy, like, let's say a set of 10 resistors, and it would cost me like $1. However, what I have done in the past, like when I was making Christmas gifts for mine and my wife's family, and I needed like 10 resistors, I had to buy on Amazon 100 resistors. And 100 resistors on, let's say, AliExpress will cost you like $1.50 to $2.50. Now, shipping got a little bit more expensive and the dollar is not that great. So whatever, let's say $3, at the big max. But now, because I needed it in a couple days, I had to buy it from Amazon and in a pack of 100. And that pack of 100 cost me like $10 delivered to my door. And so places like QKits allows you to go in and just get what you need. They probably have it in stock. The stock there is incredible and it costs you less. You're supporting local. I mean, it's just win-win-win overall. More than I really want to get James on the podcast and chat about the positive things that made him start a business in the first place, and also the pitfalls, like what's bad about it. He kind of, he really poured his heart out when I went to see the shop, and he was a really nice guy, but a lot of things are conspiring against local, independent, small sellers. It was a little bit sad to see, but it was phenomenal to walk in there, and I felt like I was looking at the inside of someone's mind who thinks very similar to me. Like, the organization in there is great. The fact that he spent his time to make display pieces himself and put them on display, really cool stuff. Oh, and he had like robotics kits. That's another thing. So there's a whole bunch of those, like you see Elegoo and Deeped and stuff like that on Amazon. He had some robotics kits that seemed just like that, but the platforms were built. I think there were some kits you could put together too, but the platforms were built, and so people can buy them and just focus on the coding aspect. Doesn't have to be a whole mechanical build for it. Really impressive store. And obviously met James, introduced myself. We talked over over emails before. It didn't seem like he was ready to, come onto the podcast or anything like that. And because this was a last minute thing, my wife and I literally decided, something like 16 hours before we arrived at his shop that we were going to Kingston. I didn't warn him that we were coming, so I didn't bring camera equipment. I didn't bring microphones, anything like that. I just met the guy. Really cool guy. Has a lot of stories, a lot of things to say. Really awesome. He was really kind to us, offered us a lot of time. He was, speaking to us as equals, which is really cool. Like, he just down to earth kind of guy. We also got to meet his dog. He has an elderly dog called Tskar, which means little heart. Apparently is a rescue from Quebec somewhere. But it looks like a husky mix, maybe a pure husky. Hard to say. Looks very husky-ish. And such an old soul. Has I think it looks like painful hips or whatever, old boy, super calm, came and got love from the wife and I. We pet him and scratched him behind the ears. Really cool dog. And yeah, I mean, this is what you don't get through Amazon and AliExpress. It's that kind of like, a place to go and buy things locally, support local, have a good chat, and head home with your purchases. Now, the other thing that I really mourn from a brick and mortar store, I can't tell you how many times I have walked through a store like Home Depot and just literally up and down the aisles. Maybe I have a goal. Maybe I went there to get some screws or something. I don't know. I went to get something, but I purposely walked up and down the aisles. And that's really important to me in my creation process, is to sort of have a mental inventory of what's there, right? You get to see approximately like, oh, I didn't know you could buy pine in these sizes. Or, oh, I didn't know that oak came in these little strips, so that if you only need a little bit, you can just buy the little strip. Or, I didn't know that stuff like pipe insulation came so small or so big. It's just in my mind, I'm like gathering an inventory of what exists out there. And so when I start a project, then I have an idea of what kinds of materials I can expect to use. The other example is that I am doing some work on the docks at my parents' cottage, and I want to get new metal for the dock legs. And going to Home Depot, I was like, oh, I'll stop by and I'll check the metal selection. I probably wouldn't buy bulk metal at Home Depot. It's really meant for little pieces, for little projects. I need a lot of it. But what it allowed me to do is physically touch metal and see what thickness I could use, right? I really was thinking I was going to do a 1/4-inch plate, but 1/4 inch is way too big. I want probably something like 3/16. I got to touch and feel. And so when I was at QKits, I've been buying kits, electronic kits, stuff to put together for years. I have a box of them here. I used to do videos on them, and now I just do them for fun. But I didn't know this company, Velleman, Velleman, I didn't know that they made kits. I didn't know who they were, and I didn't know they made kits. Well, I'll be dipped if I didn't find some effect pedal kits, like guitar effect kits. So I picked one up. So I have a Velleman kit. It's called the Fuzz Box or Fuzz Distort. Wow, I can't speak today. Fuzz Distortion Effect Pedal. The kit is K8113, and this kit is discontinued. You cannot get it anywhere. I took a look on eBay. I took a look on Ali. I took a look on Amazon. I took a look on their website. You cannot buy this kit anymore. But yet, there it was, sitting on the shelf at QKits. So I bought this thing, and looks like a very high quality kit. It was a little expensive, for sure, but no more expensive than trying to buy it right from the supplier. In fact, with the weak Canadian dollar, I think I got a steal of a deal on it, and it's a complete kit. It has the aluminum enclosure. It has a custom designed PCB, comes with all the components, the instructions. It comes with, a little booklet inside. It comes with everything, even a printed faceplate on like a sticker that you stick on top of the box. So you have your faceplate as well. Like, it comes with everything except for the 9-volt battery. And so if I didn't have a place like QKits to go and just take a look, well, I wouldn't have known of its existence. I would have never known. And even better is when I've had enough of this kit, like I built it, well, QKits has an online store. So now not only do I know these kits exist, which I recommend you check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. But not only do I know that these kits exist, I know where I can get more. If I make this one, I had a lot of fun. I can go online and order another one. It'll be at my house in a couple days because Kingston is only a couple hours away from me. That is incredible. And I mourn the fact that when I go onto a site like, Amazon, I'm going to especially target Amazon for this. The search results are algorithmic. I can't just go and browse very specific categories like electronics components kits. It doesn't exist. You can't do that. Even if you click through a whole bunch of Arduino things, for example, Amazon will only recommend you the things most purchased. That's what they want to bring up to the top, is the stuff that they're pretty sure that you're already going to buy. And that means you miss out on a lot of stuff. That means that you can't browse anymore. And browsing, I think, is a really important part of hobbies like electronics, because it's so broad that you don't get to know what's out there without browsing. Like, there is no way I have seen every product on AliExpress, for example. But when I put in a search term that AliExpress doesn't have any results for, instead of saying there's no results, all it does is it shows you 2 or 3 results. It thinks it's close, and then it shows you stuff that you've been interested in the past. I don't like algorithmic browsing. I want to go to a place like QKits, and I want to look on the shelf and see what's there. Another crazy thing, all of the 3D printer filament that was there, they're all in brown boxes. Brown boxes, sometimes white boxes. But they all have a window, so I can physically look at the color. I can look at how translucent it is. This is not stuff you get good feedback for on Amazon. You do not. And so the PTG that I ended up picking up, I picked it up because it's a nice translucent red. And I thought, this is really cool. I can put LEDs behind this, or I can make a lens for LEDs, or I can make it like a transitional lens where maybe when stuff goes wrong, maybe it's a white LED traditionally, and then if something goes wrong, a little, red thing slides in front of it and gives you red light. Like, these kinds of things that you can imagine are not available on places like Amazon. So there is a local electronics shop around here. It's not huge, and now it seems like the small store that I was in is now 2 different electronics shops put together. But I'm gonna go take a look. I don't think it's gonna be like QKits. I think they've pivoted a little bit their business in order to survive. But I'm gonna check it out, and I hope it's good, because I really want to make YouTube videos on small electronics kits, or on small electronics stores, because I believe that imagination, that browsing, that community, the organization. I think all of that is kind of what's missing from the electronics hobby. There's a lot of people in the electronics vertical on YouTube saying that their content isn't doing as well. And I believe one of the big deals is that there's just not enough sort of imagination for electronics. Everything has gone online, which is convenient in one way, but inconvenient in another, right? By relying on the algorithm, you kind of lose the prospect of browsing, which I think is really important. So I guess now this brings us to, well, what do we do? So if you want to save electronics shops, you need to support them. It's that simple. I went in there, I don't want to sort of brag about how much money I spent, but I bought stuff there because I wanted to support. Also because I found some stuff that I wasn't able to typically find. Like I definitely bought that fuzz pedal kit. Really excited to put that together. Probably will put it together on a live stream. I bought some EL wire because you know what? I've never seen it in person. So being there, I got to see how much I get for my money, and the price was pretty good. I bought some push buttons as well. Push buttons I've never seen before in a form factor I've never seen. So they're circular. They look a little bit like arcade buttons, but they're quite a bit smaller. So I bought some of that, and I bought some beautiful translucent red PETG. Let me see if I can find the brand on that. You know, it doesn't even have a brand. I'm just looking at it now. It's probably meant to white label, but it looks phenomenal. Looks really good. So really happy about that. He also carries some made in Canada filament, which is really cool to see. And so I would implore you, if you're Canadian and you're looking for a place to buy some electronics from, check out the website in the description. Their online store is definitely not as good as going in person. Again, you miss that browsing aspect, and you won't see the absolutely awesome cacophony of parts and parts and parts galore. It's really a sight to behold. I think you're going to love it if you can go in person. But especially if you're Canadian, I would say, make a couple orders, try to support local as much as we can before these places disappear forever. But I guess in the long term, what is the solution to disappearing electronics stores? Well, let me tell you, I had an idea years and years ago, and I don't think this is a unique idea. It's just something I thought would be really cool. When I started doing YouTube and I was ordering parts, first of all, I was an amateur. So I was using 2 or 3 transistors per circuit max. I wasn't particularly good at electronics. Nothing advanced was being built. So when I ordered in a 100 pack of 3904 transistors or whatever, I would use 1 or 2. Sometimes I would blow them up and then, use another one. But I still had a stock of 90 plus transistors sitting in boxes in my workshop. And in fact, I still have way more parts than I need because buying 1 or 2 isn't really cost effective direct from China. So I was thinking about this, and you guys can let me know what you guys think of this concept, but a sort of electronics co-op. So let's say you have a group of, 20 electronics enthusiasts in a city. So we'll take Ottawa here as a city. So let's say there's 20 people who do hobbyist electronics or, are techie enough to desolder parts and solder parts they're sort of like the go-to repairers for their family and friends, so hobbyists, people who repair out of necessity, those kinds of people, maybe people who have taken college courses, whatever. So you get about 20 people, even if it's more or less, doesn't matter. You all set up a Google Sheet, right? Now, this is where it becomes a little complicated, but you input all of the parts you have extra. So, for example, I use a lot of diodes in my designs. I used so many diodes that I was running low on 1N 007 or whatever it is, the the classic diodes, regular diodes, in through-hole package. So instead of buying another 100, which at the time I was planning a project that would use 80 or so, I bought 1,000, right? It was my first 1,000 off quantity purchase. But that means that I have 800 that I don't need. So I would list them in a Google Sheets, right? So something like that, like a Google Sheets, whatever it may be. And the idea is that you would list it, and then you would list a unit price that you'd be comfortable selling them to people. So that could be $0 if you're like, please, I have too many of these, just take them. Or that could be like a penny each to recoup your costs or whatever it may be. But you list your extra parts, things that you're okay with getting rid of, and a price, a unit price. So for me, probably as a YouTuber, it would be more of a service. I would probably just give away stuff to people making cool stuff because, I can't really support monetarily on my salary. So yeah, I mean, you're doing your homework on a Sunday night and you need a couple of transistors to finish your project. Yeah, sure. Come over and pick them up. Right. So the idea would be, it would be like a swap meet, but with people's inventories essentially. And, the other part of this is you would be in a group where someone would say, oh, I'm looking for this. Does anybody have it? And the idea is it's all constrained to a local area. Like for my case, it would be like Ottawa. Actually, we call Ottawa Gatineau area, one thing. And if someone needed something, they can drive out to the person who has the stuff in stock and buy it or get it for free or whatever for a very reasonable price and be back in their lab the same day, in some cases 15 minutes later, and continue their work. And so that would prevent someone who's just down the street from you, essentially, from buying 99 parts they don't need because they just want the one part. Sort of like a community exchange type thing. I mean, I was thinking I could run, a Kijiji. It's like our Canadian Craigslist, but essentially a Craigslist shop. I could just list all my inventory, and if people want to come, buy onesies and twosies, then they can come and buy onesies and twosies. The problem with me is that I'm not home that often, or I'm filming or whatever. But I mean, the idea is what really interested me, that we could build a self-supporting community via, this kind of thing. We could use the internet that is bad for the hobby, sorta, in a way that makes it good for the hobby, right? And you build a community, you get to know your neighbors that also do this kind of stuff, that are also enthusiasts. And at the same time, if, a 9-gram servo burns out in your your arm that you're going to use the next day for whatever target practice, I don't know, then you have a way of on the same day going to get a part to replace it, right? So that was my sort of basic idea. And I'm just thinking about it now, reflecting as I'm speaking to you, and by you I mean I'm literally looking at a waveform on Audacity here, but reflecting on it, I think the other option is to have a makerspace with a shop. And this shop can be commission based. So I've got, 90 3904s that I don't use, 2N3904 transistors. So what I can do is I can put those 90 2N3904 transistors in the makerspace shop, and I want 2 cents for it, and the makerspace sells it for 10 cents each. And then I get the 2 cents back when it sells. Basically, I don't get money unless it sells. And then the profit that the makerspace gets, they can put towards their equipment, right? And obviously, it has to be a cash only deal or something, because, doing transactions at a couple cents a pop really sucks. But it I think in the large scheme of things, it could work. right? Or even you can make it that your minimum order is $2 or $5 or whatever. So if I need a transistor today, I would pay $5 for it. I mean, the principle of it would hurt me on the inside, but if I knew the profit was going to a makerspace, then I would do it all day long. I would probably just get like 40 or 50 things and give them, a whole bunch of money. Whatever it is, right? So that's kind of my idea. What do you guys think about that? Would you pay extra if you knew the money was going in the pockets of a hobbyist or someone who enjoys the same stuff you enjoy, or even if it went into the pockets of an organization like a makerspace, which I'm not even sure if Ottawa has anymore. I think COVID may have killed our last makerspace. Let me look that up real quick. Just taking a cursory glance, it looks like there still is the makerspace that used to be, but they don't have a space anymore. It seems like they just have to use other people's spaces in order to hold events. And the events look like they are meetups and stuff like that. So possibly, you could say that it exists, but I mean, it's not really, it's a shell of its former self. It doesn't have a permanent home. So interesting, but yeah, kind of sad. Then there's also there's a makerspace at the university, which I need to check out. I attended the university for a couple of years, and before I got the job at the college, which then I had to drop university to teach at the college, and now the college is shut down. So fantastic in my luck. But anyways, I haven't been in there mostly because when I was on campus, I was at class. When I wasn't at class, I was home. So I need to go check out those places. Maybe I'll go to a Hack 613 is the makerspace. Maybe I'll go to one of their events and see what it's all about. But it's really sad that they don't have their own space. That's kind of sad that makerspaces have big troubles surviving in today's world, considering that we are moving away from like global logistics into favoring more locally made stuff. We're trying to, protect our local markets, and yet makerspaces, which breed the kind of skills and innovation that we need in industry, they're not supported at all. Really sad. I'll tell you, if I was a big YouTuber like Mr. Beast sized, you can be guaranteed that I'd be funding makerspaces and stuff like that. In fact, I believe if you go to the bigger sort of sciencey, technology-ish YouTube channels, they typically do stuff out of pocket because it's just sad that it's hard to get support, right? It's hard to sort of encourage these kinds of hobbies and stuff because it costs money and nobody wants to spend it. On a more positive note, though, I believe I will be back to streaming this Sunday. That is going to be what I'm going to try, Sunday morning. Friday and Saturday, I think I'm going to have to open up the pool in the backyard. By the way, don't think that just because you can afford the house doesn't mean you can afford to run the pool. Biggest mistake of my life, but it is what it is. Now I got to deal with it. So I'm going to open the pool this Friday, Saturday, maybe a little bit Sunday in the afternoon. But other than that, Sunday morning, probably around 8 Eastern time, I'm going to try to stream. Take a look at my live streaming channel to get the details of that. The itinerary will be to have a sneak peek at the QKits Hall and a little bit of a chat around that. We're going to be trying to finish up the F1 starting grid lights. That's a KiCad project. We're going to be finishing that. And then we might start filming educational content. So a little while ago, I bought a kit, sort of like reminiscent of the old school sort of scientific kits. They're like plastic parts, but they are all electricity based. So There's three meters, like a voltmeter, an ammeter, and a Gauss meter. I'm not actually sure what the other meter is. I'm not opening the box. It's going to cause a ruckus in here. So there's 3 meters. There's like pretty much everything. There's like a demo on like how a motor works, magnetism works, static electricity, capacitors, all sorts of stuff. This is all stuff I'm going to play with to familiarize myself because I am planning on doing a 101 series, the very basics. I'm doing that in sort of electronics, so on the Simple Electronics YouTube channel. And also I'm planning on doing it on an automotive channel, which is the Dan Fixes Cars channel. It's those kinds of videos that I probably will get really low viewership on in the first little while. Most of my subscribers already know these things. Most of you guys, you know your Ohm's law, you know your Watt's law, you know your Lenz's laws, and you know way more laws than I do. But it's those kinds of videos that I find bridge the gap. They're the most satisfying for me when people who don't know these things stumble across those videos, learn something, and become really happy about it. You know, I've always said how my second most watched YouTube video is how to use a multimeter the simplest way or something like that. And I put a lot of work into that and did the website article, and it's like my second most viewed video essentially. And people still comment that it's a really good video. In fact, it's sad because I don't get as many, you know, the ratio of comments to views is kind of low. But even like as we speak right now, it is my most watched video in the last 48 hours, which is really cool. I got a whole bunch of comments. I got, you know, still very little money for having 200,000 views, but it is what it is. That's just YouTube. But what's better than money is the satisfaction I got from it. People are loving it. People are learning it. People have reached out that wanted to use my video in their classrooms, which is absolutely fine. Go ahead. Some company wanted to use my video in their educational, like online learning stuff. And I said, yeah, just, you know, embed it, like make sure it comes from YouTube so that I at least get the views, the credited views on that. And they said, yeah, we really would like to rip, you know, a copy for ourselves and whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have to license that. And then they like disappeared. So really sad about that. But, you know, the fact that I made something that is worthy of showing in a classroom is really my goal here. Yes, I want to make cool projects. Yes, I want to do things that I wouldn't have the opportunity to do before. Yes, I want a reason to justify buying cool things like lithium batteries and all sorts of things. But I really would like to leave a legacy of education at the same time. I would really love if someone came up to me, you know, in 10 years, 15 years and said, oh, your videos, you know, it's because of your videos that I did X, Y, and Z, which I don't know. I think that is the most impactful part. I think that's really cool. And I'd like to think I've affected some people's lives. I mean, there is a dedicated audience here listening to the podcast, which is essentially just me rambling for an hour every week, especially when I haven't reached out to anybody to come onto the podcast yet. So, you know, I really appreciate you guys, but I want to reach a broader audience. I really want to teach people things. That has been my passion for a long time. And since the college won't let me teach anymore, you know, you guys do, which is a great thing. So yeah, you guys make me feel the warm and fuzzies inside, but I have a bigger spot in my heart for, you know, teaching. And so on that bombshell, I think it is time to end. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the podcast week after week. You know, you folks, I salute you. I feel like I'm not just talking to the void because I know you guys are listening. Guys and girls, there's actually a couple of women who have come out and said they listen to the podcast. So I think my analytics are split, mostly male. Let me check my analytics here while I've got you on the line here. So it looks like my analytics, oh boy, 91.7% male, but 8.3% female. Okay, girlies, I see you. I see you in the audience there. So I think that's pretty high for a tech type YouTube channel. And I'll tell you, I'm quite proud of that stat. I'm really happy that it's in the high single digits. I hope it goes up more. That just means I'm a welcoming place to the ladies. So welcome to the show, ladies. And of course, we all know that some women are already friends of the show. We've had them on the podcast before. And if anyone wants to come back on the podcast, just reach out. I'll have you back on at any time. No worries. And I will catch you guys, the listeners, you guys and gals, on the next episode. Hopefully with a guest. We'll see if I manage to forget to reach out again. Thanks for listening.